Okay, we are now live.
We're ready, Mr. Chair.
All right, very good. All right, it is 3:01 p.m. I'd like to call the Budget and Finance Committee meeting to order of Akron City Council. If I could please, I'd like to ask for a motion to accept the minutes from our last meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor, aye.
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 And then also I failed to take a roll call. If we could please, Ms. Bibiano.
Sure. Freeman,
Aye.
Amobian,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
Baylor,
Aye.
Lombardo.
Aye.
All committee members are present.
All right, thank you. We have no old business. We do have one item today, and this is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance or his designee to enter into a contract with the Akron Summit Convention and Visitors Bureau Incorporated to pay an operating subsidy for the Convention Bureau in order to support services and offerings of the Convention Bureau to the residents and visitors of the greater Akron area, authorizing payment therefore and declaring an emergency. And I see we do have Mr. Greg Mervis with us today. Thank you for being with us, Mr. Mervis.
Thank you, Councilman.
And I would just at this time ask you if you'd like to offer us anything, any information we might want to know from the past year or anything exciting we have coming up here for 22.
Sure. A lot of faces on the screen for one issue, so I appreciate everybody's time. As many of you know, if you might not, my name is Greg Mervis, and I'm president of the Akron Summit Convention and Visitors Bureau. And under that, we also manage the John S. Knight Center, and we also manage Greystone Hall. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you here today. Pre-COVID, we represented about 16,000 employees throughout the county. Now we're estimating probably about 11,500, maybe 12,000 employees throughout the county. So there's a tremendous economic vitality that has surrounded the hospitality industry throughout the county, as well as certainly within the city, and then additionally downtown. We've been in operation since 1973. We've had a similar contract in different manifestations to this since that time. We appreciate your belief in us and what we do for this community. We strive to be excellent. We strive also to be good stewards of the funds that are provided to us. For those of you that this helps out a little bit, we've received for 6 continuous years, we've had a state audit, and we've received an unqualified opinion in all of those 6 years. So that's a very positive thing. So just so you know that we are good stewards, not only in the marketing and bringing in of guests and growing that economic vitality, but also in managing the money the way that we should be managing the money based on general accounting practices. The 2 primary hotels in downtown, the Courtyard by Marriott Northside and the Hilton Garden East End, are both doing very, very well through COVID. They're probably not inside secrets, but they're probably at about 70% of where they were pre-COVID. We, from city bed tax collections, 2021 versus 2019, which might be relevant. So we know in a COVID year versus pre-COVID, we were at about 80%. So your collections that you allow us to utilize are about 80% in 2021 as they were in 19, which was the pre-COVID year. The Blue Teak Hotel, still for the moment, is shuttered. They are now planning an opening mid-May. I think May 14th or May 15th. Mid-May is the opening date for that. Not going to try and paint the picture too pretty. It's been a really tough 2 years, but we have some really, really resilient people on the team here. They're heavy hitters. They buckled down. We unfortunately had to lay off some staff. We've started bringing back. We've brought back about half of what we laid off. So I'm excited about. Unfortunately, we had to lay off. Excited that we're able to bring so many back so far, and working towards getting back to where we were. It's been a tough year, but we got some great people, resilient community, and resilient people here within the Convention Bureau, Convention Center, and Greystone Hall. Appreciate what you all do in allowing us to utilize some of the funds that you receive. As far as bed tax goes, about half of the funds that you receive come to us. So we appreciate that, and I would look forward to answering any questions if that's appropriate. And at the end of the day, look forward to a favorable response to this request.
Sure, absolutely. And thank you. I know these have been tough couple of years for you. Thanks, Greg, for you and your staff continuing to persevere through these tough times. And I will entertain any questions from committee members, or for that matter, anybody. Mr. Malik.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Mervis, for your presentation and also for the work that you do and everyone in the organization does. Just a question maybe for the finance department. I see that the amount is for 2021 and 2022, and the previous legislation was just 2020. Is there a reason why it's being packaged together?
So yes, so we were not able to process the 2020 payment at the end of last year. So this is just we're basically rolling 2 years of distributions into this one payment.
Thank you, Mr. Fricker. And all of the funding for this comes from the bed tax?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Good question, Mr. Malik. Thank you for that. Ms. Amobian.
That was going to be my comment, sir, that this was bad tax money that was rolled into 2 years. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Any other questions or comments looking around here? All right. Again, let's hope for good things here in 22 and beyond. And looking forward to you being able to bring back even more staff, Greg. I know you are as well, but thank you for not just sitting on your hands over there. I know you've been proactive, looking towards even better days here in Akron. We appreciate it deeply. So, Mr. Fricker, Shelley, consent okay on this?
Consent would be fine, yes.
Okay. I'd ask for a motion for consent.
Motion for
Move
consent.
that we consent.
Okay, we have a motion and then subsequently a second. All in favor, please let it be known by saying aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Okay, very, very good. Thank you so very, very much. Thank you, Mr. Mervis, as well. And thank you for your service to the city, the county, and the surrounding community. All right, and it is 3:07, and we will adjourn at this time.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Chairman,
we have an ARPA update scheduled.
Oh,
for
okay,
today.
that's right. I'm sorry. I missed that. Right. Please proceed.
All right. Well, I'm going to be taking the first part of the presentation. We do have a PowerPoint. So if Jake Bell can share that with you all, share his screen, that would be great. All right. So we're here to talk to you guys today about the Akron Rescue Plan website and dashboard. So if you want to go to the next page, Jake, we can touch on what we'll be discussing. Today, we're going to be going over our timeline, the dashboard architecture, the consultants we hired to do this work, which they're on the call with us, so you'll get to meet them, as well as the design and content of the website. All right. So timeline, as soon as council appropriated the ARPA dollars in November, we hit the ground running. This project has been a collaboration between finance, IT, capital planning, and communications. We've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes on this. Due to these being federal dollars, we needed to make sure we followed uniform guidance and obtained multiple quotes for these services. So we did have to go to multiple different companies to get quotes for this work. After we defined the scope of the project, we received those multiple quotes and we ultimately decided to go with MarketMe 24/7 for this project. You'll be meeting them here soon. So during the month of December, we were working on getting that scope of work defined with them. We've never built this dashboard and this is new to all of us. So it did take some discovery on our part and their part on getting the contracts executed and doing a deep dive into our data and our systems. You'll see on this timeline that it's been a process for sure, and we're continuing through in February, but it was imperative for us to build out the correct reporting hierarchy and workday for the dashboard. The data and how we enter the payments into the system is going to feed into the dashboard, and we needed to capture as many different attributes as possible to make sure that we can slice and dice the data in a multitude of ways. So as you can see in this timeline, we are currently in phase 1, where we are working with both Guidehouse, IT, and Workday to configure the data that's already in Workday into Power BI, which is Power Business Intelligence. It's a Microsoft product, and Darren Rosnack is on this call as well if you guys really want to get techie, but that's not really my wheelhouse. But we do have him on the call as well, and he's been working with that tech aspect of this project. We're working on a custom integration that will allow Power Business Intelligence to pull the dashboard data from Workday and put it onto this live website that we are also developing. The goal is to be able to launch the website and the dashboard. I'm shooting for the end of February, but at worst case scenario, it'll be the beginning of March with the dashboard. Over the coming months after we go live, we'll be looking at more creative ways to display the data, such as incorporating GIS data and providing heat maps for where services are rendered. One area that I think could be helpful is, we are using some ARPA funds for Akron Cares, and to be able to display, and have a heat map of where the applicants are living in the city of Akron to see who is benefiting from that service. I think that would be an amazing way to represent that data. The goal is to be able, like I said, to launch the website and dashboard by the end of February, beginning of March at the latest. And we're going to be continually talking to you all to see what other items that you want to see on the website, because we want you all to promote it and get it out there to the public. We hope that this website is going to be very helpful to our constituents, to your constituents, and to city residents. So let's go to the next slide, Jake, on the architecture. Like I said, I'm not so techie, but I can generally speak to this. The dashboard architecture is comprised of the following 3 steps. Workday data will be transferred to Power Business Intelligence through an API, which stands for Application Programming Interface, and then is pushed to the public website. So the information that will be able to be viewed on the public website will be data that's flowing directly from Workday, from our actual financial system. Like I said, Darren's on this call. If you guys have more questions about the in-depth questions about the architecture, but we are developing all of this behind the scenes because we want this data to be live and to be easily flowing through to this public dashboard. So let's go to the next page. Next, I'm going to introduce you all to MarketMe 24/7. They are the consultants we have hired to assist us with this project. I'm honored to introduce to you both Lucia Ortega and Preston Clark, who own the company, and they would love to tell you a little bit about their company and this project and all that we've been working on. So without further ado, Preston and Lucia.
Hello, I am the owner and marketing specialist of MarketMe 24/7. We are an Akron-based company. Some of my expertise and specializations include market research, creating campaigns and optimizing those, and website development. And I look forward to working on this project and revealing the website.
Hello, my name is Preston Clark. I am CEO and lead designer here at MarketMe 24/7. I see some familiar faces, Tara, Russell, and Margot. I've known for many, many years, like family. Also, in 2020, I had the distinctive honor of presenting the mayor at the State of the City address, and I'm excited to work on this ARPA project and get this information out to the public.
Thank you, guys. And they will be around for further questions when we get to that. I'm now going to kick it over to Jake Bell. He is the multimedia coordinator with the city of Akron, and he's just going to touch a little bit on the design aspects and content aspects of the website. So, Jake.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate the time to speak a little bit about this. Internally, we are really excited to create a resource that is very public facing and will allow the community to have a really transparent look at the way that the city is investing these funds over the next couple of years. So when thinking about design, obviously, when we look to take on new projects, we often look for best practices from other cities throughout the country. And what we found continually as we looked at other American Rescue Plan websites is that they weren't typically designed in a way that is user-friendly, that is conducive to public interaction. And so we wanted to be really intentional about creating a site that was very user-friendly, that stood apart from other City of Akron websites and had a unique feel that really introduces this to the public as something that is kind of going to be a resource going forward for investment in the community. As you can see here, I've contained some mock-ups of wireframes of what we're thinking. This isn't the best way to view it in this PowerPoint, because obviously the site will be structured in a way that you'll go from section to section. We wanted to provide residents with the ability to see the 30,000 foot holistic details of the American Rescue Plan, when it was passed, kind of the funding structure, the amount of money coming into the city. We want to be able to offer a timeline as well for when the city received allocation and certain dates in the future as to when funds need to be allocated and then ultimately expended. And we wanted to obviously lay out the priorities and the areas of investment the city will be taking with these funds. And obviously the site will be a very iterative process. I think when it launches, it'll kind of just be the broad strokes of what the Akron Rescue Plan is. And as funds begin to be allocated and expended, obviously we will update the site to contain details about new grant programs, where the money is being expended. And obviously one of the most powerful aspects of this is going to be the dashboard. I think being able to present information transparently is obviously a good thing, but the way that we want to do it is a way that constituents will be able to view funding through unique lenses, as Shelley had mentioned. And we're looking at a lot of interesting ways to present that information and also make this accessible so residents can use this as a resource going forward. The last thing I want to touch on is a little bit, I already kind of did a little bit about content. Like I said, we will be being very iterative and intentional with how we update the site over the coming years to make sure we include all possible resources and information around ARPA investment over the next couple of years, and doing it in a way that we think is very user-friendly and really something that's different than many other municipalities throughout the country. So we're really excited. I think we picked some great consultants to help guide our vision and get it out there. And just to recap, we're really excited about offering this resource to the community. So thank you.
All right, so that's all we have right now, but we're excited for this upcoming launch of the website and the dashboard. And we are here to take questions from you all in regards to the presentations. So thank you.
Shelley, I wanted to ask, so we're taking, having one program talk to another. None of that work has been done before. This is all original with, what we're paying these consultants and whatnot to do. Is that correct?
Correct. And Darren, do you want to touch a little bit on that? I mean, we're in uncharted territory for sure, but we are definitely navigating through it, and it's going very well. But it's taking a little longer than I would have hoped. But Darren can speak to that. So.
Yes, sir. So as far as the architecture with the APIs between the systems, that is new. Power BI is a brand new system that is being stood up for this. But being architected in a way that it'll be leverageable for city purposes once this project proceeds. So we're using it as base technology we were going to be implementing. We just are implementing it through this project to be leveraged for everything else.
Okay, so say we come up with just, the best system going. Does that information and architecture, whatever, belong to us that we could possibly make it available to other cities at a fee?
No, this wouldn't be considered intellectual property.
Okay.
So it's just the design of how we're putting it together. The APIs, so the interfaces themselves, each system have, we're basically just connecting the two. It's not something other municipalities or organizations haven't done. It's just new to the city of Akron.
Okay, thank you. All right, looking for other questions, comments, Mr. Malik?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you everyone who presented. Really excited to see this. It looks like an awful lot of work has been put in, and I'm really excited to see the outcome. I think it's really helpful when we can get information out to residents and help provide residents with accessible information, right? Just a couple things. I know that the Racial Equity Social Justice Task Force has a subcommittee on communications, and I know that a lot of what was in the presentation are things that they've kind of talked about in the abstract. So I wonder if there might be the opportunity to use that group as like a focus group, maybe just hold one meeting of the subcommittee just to, share some of what Preston and Lucia, you've been doing, Jake, some of what you've been doing, and just get some of their feedback. That might be helpful, since they've been really thinking about it more than frankly I have, or maybe on council we have. And then the second is, I'm sure this is something that we're talking about, but making sure we have clear goals for programs around race and socioeconomic data, and then having clear metrics on how whether we're meeting those goals. I think that's really important going forward. But thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. And Shelley or Steve, Darren and Preston, those groups, we're paying for them out of the ARPA funds themselves?
Correct. Yeah. So Darren works for the city, so luckily, we already pay him. But but yes, Market Me 24/7 is being paid for out of the ARPA funds to develop this. This website is going to evolve throughout the coming years, right? So it's going to not be a project that we just launch the website and then we never update it. So they're going to be providing support to the city of Akron throughout that process, updating the content, adding grant programs, adding information, updating the public on how programs are proceeding. So it's going to be a lot of work over the next coming years.
So does this put pressure on Darren and take away from some of the standard things he would normally be doing? Or
we're all just pitch hitting at this point.
Okay, very good. Mr. Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm pleased to see that we're using local talent to put this together. But Shelley, you said something that made me pause, and this isn't in relation to the consultants, it's in relation to the city's overall process. We're almost a year into having received these ARPA dollars. Now, for them to put analytical data in the website, we have to have metrics already in place. We are not waiting for them to come up with metrics, correct?
Gotcha.
They're not developing metrics. No, I mean, we're doing that with you all, and that's part of the racial equity framework work that, I'm sorry, I'm getting feedback, that is being done, alongside council.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm in a shared office right now.
Yeah, no problem.
But what I'd like to do is, if we can, because we've got to vote on part of the budget next week. If we can have some of those metrics so that we can vote on the budget, the metrics that we would eventually, share with the consultants. I heard you say that, you're going to be working with us, but I think I just want to stress how critical it is for us to have those as soon as possible, because we're making budgetary decisions right now. And if we don't have those metrics, then we don't know if we're making them equitably. Just want to keep stressing that. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? I don't want to miss anyone. Yes, Ms. Mosley.
Thank you, Chairman Freeman. Shelley, question for you. So you mentioned that they will be handling the interface and the updates for this, for the website on the back end and the front, I'm assuming, and they're going to be paid through ARPA. So for what? First question is, how long is the contract for, and does their contract run coincide with ARPA, or will there be funds earmarked from that process to make sure that they're paid? Because eventually the Guidehouse's contract will end, and it seems like their work is going to continue.
Yeah, I don't have their contract in front of me. I know that there was, we contracted with them to do the initial build out of the website, and then there is, a yearly maintenance fee that we will pay them to continue to update the website and do certain maintenance items for us. So, I mean, I can pull the contract and send that over to you if you would like. But yeah, we definitely want this to be a partnership with Market Me 24/7, and for them to, walk side by side with us as we launch this. We launch the dashboard. We continue to build it out over the coming months and years, and continually update it with content. We want it to look fresh. We want it to be easily consumable, much more so than our current website. And so, that's really what we're going for, and we want to accomplish with them. So this is a long-term contract project that we are working on with them.
Okay, so if you could send that over to all of us,
no problem.
Appreciate it, because my concern is once the guidehouse contract is completed and they've done their part, if they're being paid through guidehouse.
They're not being paid. No, they're being paid directly.
ARPA, I'm saying that's
yeah.
ARPA. So once those ARPA dollars have been dispersed, making sure that they're going to be there to do the updates. There's going to be a continual contract, assuming that's when it would come to us. Just seeing where that is to make sure that, there's not a gap there where there's no funds available, to make sure that the updates are there. So that's where I'm going.
Yeah, no problem. We've encumbered the funds for their contracts, so they're earmarked with ARPA dollars, for the length of their contract. So we don't have to, we have the money set aside to pay them through this project. But yeah, I can send over the contract to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll come to Ms. Amobian and then Mr. Malik, I'll come to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question has to do with, and I think it follows Mosley's line of questioning, that we are under contract with this Market Me company because they're going to also include in their deliverables to us the ongoing outcomes from all of these programs that we are dispersing money to. I'm assuming that those things would be on the dashboard and on that website as well. Am I correct in assuming that, Ms. Goodrich?
You're correct in assuming that it's going to be very important for us to communicate how we're progressing over the years, right? We want to be able to display data that shows, if we're reconstructing a community center, right? We want to be communicating with how that's going, providing, picture updates or video updates about the progress with these funds throughout the length of the project. So those kinds of updates, they will continuously be working on with us as we feed content to them, making sure that the public is really seeing, how these dollars are being used within the community. So that's so important. And we want to be communicating with the community about how the projects are progressing. So if we're helping people with utility billing dollars, or we're building a new community center, or we're doing business mentorship, we want to be telling the story of that, right? And be able to communicate that not only to you all, the community as well, so that people can see how these dollars are being invested in our community.
So just a follow up. I just want to make sure I understand. I know the dollars have to be committed a certain point, 2024, 25 or whatever.
2024. Yep. Ended 2024.
And expended by 2026. But we are expecting to get outcomes beyond 2026.
That's correct.
So this dashboard is going to be encompassing that piece as well. Or are we planning to have staff, the city staff, to continue to give the output? Because we want to know, once you spend the dollars, the outcomes should not end. I mean, that's when we should be beginning to look at how are these groups doing in providing these services to our citizenry. So am I correct in assuming that?
You are correct. I don't know, I don't know how we're going to tackle that at that time, whether it's using another funding source to continue to pay someone to assist us in telling that story, or if that's something that we would assume internally at that time. I think that's yet to be determined.
Yeah, because the story just starts 2024 to 2026. I mean, that's the beginning of the story.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that's a question probably a lot of folks have is, is there a way you could build it into ARPA, going out 6, 7, 8 years? I don't know what the terms would be if you could do that, but it'd certainly be nice for us not to have to assume another cost. So, yeah.
I mean, we can obligate it and then spend it up to 2026, but after 2026, the dollars have to, we can't pay for future services and the dollars have to be gone at that point. So we'll have to figure out what that looks like, over the coming years.
So we can just give something else for Darren to do.
And just throw something else on his plate.
Mr. Malik, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excuse me. Ms. Goodrich, you kind of mentioned the point that I was going to ask about, which is the current city website. Obviously, is perhaps not the most accessible in terms of getting information, in terms of using it. Is this kind of going to be a learning experience that leads us to a wholesale revision of the city website?
I would certainly hope so, just, even for my own benefit. But no, I don't know where. Maybe Darren or Jake has more information on that. I mean, I know that's been something that we've been slating for quite some time, but I don't know where that stands. Do either of you all, perhaps?
Annie was budgeting for it for this year. I know it was also slated to be possible, a request that was made by multiple people as part of the ARPA funds, whether it qualifies or not. But that has been a project that has been on the list for the mayor's office for a few years now. But as far as I know, there's nothing solidified for 2022 yet.
Councilman Malik, we are looking at it and we will definitely loop you into those conversations.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wilms. I look forward to it.
Thank you.
So hopefully we'll be back here in a couple of weeks showing you the finished product. Well, not the finished product, the first iteration of the product. And, we're excited for the upcoming launch. And so, I mean, feel free to reach out if you guys have any comments or suggestions. This will be an iterative process over, the coming months and years. So, we're excited to get going.
So it sounds like realistically, you're saying the launch is going to be the beginning of March.
I'm hoping end of February. Worst case scenario, beginning of March. But we're Preston and Lucia can attest that we're gently pushing everyone that we would like it to be the end of February. So, but things happen. Technology has to cooperate, and there's a lot of different moving parts. So,
Well, I think everyone would say, don't launch until it's right. And that would.
Absolutely.
That's just a good policy, I think. All right. Any other comments or questions from council members? Anyone else? Well, thanks for the presentation. Thank you very much to each and every one of you.
And we'll send over those slides to you all.
Okay, thank you very much. And Darren, Jake, thank you for all the work that you're doing. And we look forward to a good site here very, very soon. Thank you. And with that, at 3:33, we will call the meeting closed and we will adjourn. Thank you so much.
Our last committee meeting of the day is the Housing and Neighborhood Assistance Committee. Those committee members are Fusco, Holland, Mosley, McKittrick, and Connor. Just give everyone a moment to come back to video.
Okay, Sarah, you ready?
I am ready. We do have all committee members present except for Councilwoman Mosley at the moment. Do you want to give her a moment to rejoin? Here she is. Never mind, I take that back. We have all committee members present whenever you're ready.
Thank you. We'll begin the Housing Committee meeting of Akron City Council. Sarah Viviana, could we please have a roll call?
Sure. Fusco.
Aye.
Holland.
Aye.
Mosley.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Connor.
Aye.
All committee members are present.
Very good. Thank you, Sarah Viviana. I'd like to entertain a motion that we approve the minutes of the last meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you. We have one item that's up in the Housing Committee meeting of Akron City Council. Mr. Neal is the sponsor. Mr. Neal, do you have any comments? We asked for 1 week's time. Mr. Neal?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Really, my question is to members of committee and to council. Since our last meeting, I haven't heard anything. I did make a request, and that is that council members do a deliberative dialogue analysis where you take a sheet and you put pros on one side, I mean, everything that you think is good with the program, and then cons, those things that you think are challenges or negative about the program. That does two things. One, it helps us do a fair analysis on the merit of the program itself. The other thing it does is it gives us data by which to move from the resolution to the ordinance. So I asked that last week. Don't know if members had a chance to do a deliberative analysis spreadsheet where you write down pros and cons.
Okay, so do you have? Very good. Anything else, Mr. Neal?
Well, I asked a question, Mr. Chairman, because you and I spoke directly.
Yes.
Did members of council have a chance to do analysis, of pros and cons, just looking at it? And then if there were any questions to the, the draft proposal that was prepared by Mr. Westcott from our planning department that outlined a little bit more of the details. And again, it was a draft because there's some things in the draft that need to be changed, but it gives us a strong foundation by which to understand the proposal.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I can tell you this, I started to and I couldn't because I didn't have all the answers to be able to weigh it. That's me personally. I'm not going to answer for anybody else though. I see Nancy Holland's hand is up.
Thank you, Chairman Fusco, and thank you, Mr. Neal. And to answer the question concisely, I literally answered hundreds of phone calls and text messages and emails about the snow catastrophe. And I am still so exhausted that I could just scream. So with due respect, I'd like to say that I think that this is generally a good idea. However, I think that it is something that is better suited for a more developed piece of legislation as opposed to an idea in the form of a resolution. But I'm still really new at this. Because I've been so tied up, and including actually going out in my 4x4 with a shovel, I would respectfully and sincerely ask for additional time.
Okay.
Thank you.
If I may answer, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. Mr. Neal.
Okay. I mean, I respect that. This piece came in before Christmas. Came in whenever our last day was, before our last day of council committee meeting, so maybe December 7th. But I want members to feel comfortable with this. Remember, I have not received one call from a member of council or an email except for Ms. Mosley. Members also have an opportunity. This draft proposal was written by a very seasoned member of our planning department, Mr. Abraham Westcott. So you have him that you could refer to as well. And then I think the thing that is like I said, we use it in the community a lot because in the community, we try to reach consensus. And so to make sure that what I'm saying is what you're hearing and what you're hearing is what I'm saying, we use the deliberative process, pros and cons. And I did ask that, just what are the pros, because then I can understand what your questions are. But I don't know if anybody, I can't say anyone had any true questions because I haven't received any calls from anyone. No questions. I mean, so that's it, Mr. Chairman. I mean, I don't know if any of you read the paper this past week. Summit County, Akron, being the major city, for the first time in years, has a death rate that surpasses our birth rate. That's not going to change anytime soon. That's even with immigrants coming into our city. And it talked about needing to retain and bring in new population growth. I don't know if you read the part on the inner belt that talked about how families were stripped, robbed of generational wealth. A proposal like this helps everybody. It doesn't cost the city anything. It actually saves the city money.
Thank you, Mr. Neal.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I
would just like for us to stick to the legislation.
Mr. Chairman,
that's all I'm going to ask.
Mr. Chairman, we are sticking to the legislation because if you read the draft proposal, those things are mentioned in the draft proposal about how it helps Akron increase its population growth. Those things are mentioned in the draft proposal.
Okay. Stick to the legislation. That's all, sir.
Very good. Mr. Chairman, the draft proposal is a supporting documentation for the resolution.
Correct. Thank you. Mr. Malik, I see your hands up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Neal. I know we talked about this some last week and just wanted to follow up. I still want to get more clarity on how the process is intended to work. So the language in the resolution says that the city will purchase properties that were previously vacant, abandoned, or in disrepair, and then give those properties to qualifying applicants at no cost, right? And then kind of follow up for code compliance and that the repairs are being made, right? How do you envision that working? And also, how is that done at no cost to the city?
Okay. Councilman, have you had a chance to read the draft proposal, the supporting documentation with the resolution?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's all outlined because the repairs are done by the person that wins that's awarded the house. They're not done by the city. Those are done by the person that awards the house. The language as far as the city having about the city purchasing in the draft proposal, the same process that the city acquires property right now is the same process as these homes are required. Most times there's just a quick claim deed or a transfer. So if there's a cost, and when you brought that up last week, I mentioned I have no problem with that being there because most times there isn't a cost. But if there is, I would like for that to stay in there so we don't have to go back and get approval. But just the way vacant lots come before us, just the way demo waivers come before us, and the same way these properties would come. The process is already in place. The difference is instead of destroying a home, you pass the home over to a homeowner. And that process, again, drafted by our planning department, is all in the supporting documentation.
Yes, sir. I have read the supporting documentation. And again, it says city identifies and acquires single family residences. So the way you're discussing it, is that through the land bank?
That is if you read the draft proposal, not the resolution.
It's sitting right here, sir. Yes, sir. It's right here on the other screen.
It is outlined in the draft proposal that was written by our planning department, how the process works.
Respectfully, sir, that document is on my screen. It says process. Number 1, city identifies and acquires a single family residence. I'm asking you how that happens.
The same way we acquire vacant lots. And what I would be happy to do is, because I've never received a call from you, Councilman, with any questions. I'd be happy to consult with you and bring Mr. Westcott in to answer any questions, because this proposal was drafted by a member of our planning department. I took the proposal and the suggestion. Our planning department drafted this proposal based on the process that we use in the city. So the same way we acquire vacant lots, the same way we acquire property that's supposed to be demoed and acquire property from the land bank are ways that would function here. But again, I'd be happy to bring in Mr. Westcott so that he can share that process with members of council who may not be familiar, because he drafted this part as a seasoned member of our planning department.
Thank you, sir. And I think it would be great to have Mr. Westcott come in. I think that this is a great idea, as Councilwoman Holland said, but respectfully, I think that the level of detail in here does not necessarily allow for us to, make a clear, informed decision on this. because it does not spell out how this is going to happen or how it's going to happen at no cost to the city. And again, to Councilwoman Holland's point, again, it seems like it's something that should be done by ordinance, because a resolution without the details necessary to make it into an ordinance is not going to do anything functionally. And so I think that we should work, my suggestion is that we should work with Mr. Westcott and we should come up with an ordinance, and we should understand the process by which this is going to happen, understand the costs that are going to happen, any ways in which we're going to recoup costs. I take your point that on the whole, it may be a net benefit, but certainly there will be costs in terms of staff time, in terms of title fees and other things, right? And that may well be worth it. But respectfully, sir, when you tell us, make a pro-con list, and I'm asking questions here. I'm happy to talk to you offline, but I'm asking questions here. And it doesn't seem like there are enough answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malik. Thank you very much.
If I may answer him, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, just please, just briefly.
Well, no, I think he
As long as we're on the legislation.
We're on the legislation, but I mean, let's not play games here. And I do mean, let's not play games here. This draft proposal was written by our planning department. If there was any question, never received one call in here, to my colleague's point. Like I said, we passed the resolution of dealing with student loan debt. Didn't ask any questions. Do you know that by passing forgiveness of student loan debt, it doesn't answer our questions. It even exasperates some, because it creates greater wealth disparity between Black and white students. That's in the racial equity primer, and I can send you the guide. It's on page 5. But we weren't concerned with that, because we understood the resolution was speaking to the support, and that the details are worked out in the ordinance on how they're going to address that.
Okay.
To my colleagues, the resolution is not where you work out all the fine details. That is in the ordinance. This shows our resolve and our support for the concept. And the reason why I asked for a pros and cons list is so that I could know what the concerns are and go the extra mile to work with Mr. Westcott and the members out in the community that support this, to bring those fine details into the part of drafting the ordinance. That's how that works.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Neal. Appreciate that. Mr. Westcott has retired, but I like I said, just for the record, I see Miss Mosley on.
Thank you. Again, I support the resolution, and I've told Councilman Neal where I thought things should be changed. But again, although Abe has retired, we have a department with a wealth of information, I'm sure, who have worked directly with Abe extensively on his reasoning for drafting the resolution the way that he did. This is the work that he has done for the city for over 20 years, so there must have been a reason for him drafting it that way. And again, it's just a resolution. Council does not draft any of the things that come before us. Our law department does, the administration does. We don't, at least I don't. Unless I was Nancy Holland, then I probably would. I'm just saying. I just don't want us to get so caught up in, sometimes we here at this body, we get caught up in who the deliverer of the information and where it's coming from. And we don't want to, I'm not saying everyone is doing that, so I don't want you to think that I'm pinpointing, but it has happened. I think the concept is great. And I understand why Abe wrote it the way he did now, knowing that when we receive waivers from people who want their houses torn down, we're not buying those properties from them. They're signing demo waivers. And I know that from the past, chairing the housing committee, we've had people sign waivers who still were allowed to own their parcels after we tore their properties down. We paid for their properties to be torn down, but then they were able to keep their parcels, which I thought it was kind of crazy. So I met with Jason so they could explain that process to me. But it took me to talk to him. And I know Abe has retired, but I'm sure Abe would not mind coming back to explain to us his rhyme and reasoning for wording it the way that he did. I just want us to get to a point where if one of us are saying, reach out to me, ask the questions ahead of time, then we don't get caught up in semantics when we get on these committee meetings with each other, because this has been a long time coming. It's been coming back and forth too long at this point. Bring Abe in, and then we can make a definite decision whether we want to move it forward or not. Russ, I think you need to start working on the legislation piece of it, because it absolutely should be legislation. But we've never had a problem with drafting resolutions. We just had one earlier today talking about the trail. So there's never a problem with a resolution, because what it does is help push the envelope forward. It helps push the initiative forward. Our student loan debt resolution didn't have all the devil in the details in it, but we know that this is something that should happen. Those details need to come from our government, but we know it's something that needs to happen. So I think we need to bring Abe in here so then we can make a decision on what we're doing here and then move forward with the legislation, because something definitely needs to happen, because we are losing population. We are losing people, and we need to figure out what to do to bring them back into our city and keep our kids here. So reach out to Abe if you could, Councilman Fusco. If not, I'll reach out to him. Russ, if you can. I think we need to bring him in here. Even if he's retired, I'm sure he'll come. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Mr. Chairman, actually, Abraham Westcott is still employed with the city. He's with the city until the end of this month.
Okay, thank you, sir. I sincerely believe that everyone, I'm not going to speak for everyone, right? I know many of us on this council, on this committee, said that we favor the concept and the idea. It's just the details that we're having problems with. And a lot of times the resolutions that we pass asking for the feds to do something or the state to do something, then we're pretty much done because it's something beyond our control. This is within our control. That's the issues. Nancy Holland is next. And please, I just ask everybody, let's stick on point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And actually, you're halfway to the point I was about to make, which is that I understand the purpose of resolutions and respectfully would 100% agree that the point of the student debt resolution was to put forward a strong suggestion to another level of government, to the federal government, to the legislative and executive branches, to take a position. And in doing so, we were also not directly or indirectly telling them to take some specific action in which we would have a role traditionally in how they spend their money. I think that my concern here is one that maybe you can try on this way. For every person who's part of this meeting right now who has ever purchased a house, I would have you look at what the supporting document here that walks through the requirements of the city of Akron and the process. This is the concern. This isn't a free program on the city side. It's a great idea, Councilman Neal. And I can't say this enough. I'm not poo-pooing this idea. It's good. But my concern is that you've represented that somebody within the administration has written this and proposed this. But I think that we really need to have that person here. And I think that there's much agreement about that. And in his absence, someone from the office with which he's been working for so very long would need to step forward and show that buy-in as well, because this program wouldn't be free for the city. It's abundantly clear. If you've bought a house, if you've ever entered into any kind of real estate transaction, then you know that there are considerable expenses involved just in terms of transferring of the property ownership. And there would be at least 2 property transfers here. So, respectfully, I feel like I've been scolded, and I don't feel that's deserved. I happen to be pretty knowledgeable about the business of transfer of property. And I think that this is a busy legislative body, and that the logical next thing to do is to develop this more by bringing in the office, which will be responsible for the expense and labor of executing it. So thank you.
Thank you, Nancy Holland. I'm hearing from the committee. I was hoping, I know Mr. Neal and I spoke about, or last week we spoke about voting on it this week. Now I'm understanding from committee members that perhaps more time is necessary, and perhaps inviting Mr. Abraham Westcott is the next step.
Mr. Chairman?
Therefore,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Neal.
Yeah, I would like to address Ms. Holland's comments. I wish, I can't take responsibility for how you feel. I can take responsibility for how I delivered information. Out of respect from this council, we took 8 weeks for this proposal, and I haven't heard from anyone. And then I get all these questions during committee meeting, but 8 weeks, haven't heard from anyone. Some members of this council have had this information before them 8 years ago. 8 years ago. In regards to what's in the process, be there a house on that property or land, there still has to be deed transfers. So that part is a part of the normal process. When land comes for us for lots for a little, or when we demo a house, or when we give something away for $1, that is already inherent in our cost. The reason why this right here is important, we've got a budget of $400,000 for demoing homes, which if we can shift any of that away from spending $10,000 to $15,000 to tear down a home, that's money that could be saved and maybe diverted towards a minor home repair program for our wards. And for those of us that are talking about not having the details, we have been passing legislation and passing budgets with the word equity in it without any metrics or any definition to be able to determine if we are making an equitable decision.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. I think we're basically all saying the same thing. I think honestly, I think we're all kind of on the same page here in terms of, wanting to see something done, possibly, perhaps even a pilot program, what have you. But, we don't have anybody necessarily here from the administration. I guess that's where the request is for Mr. Westcott to come to the next meeting. So I will invite him to the next meeting pursuant to the request of the committee that I'm hearing. Mr. Neal, you are the sponsor, so I assume you're okay with inviting Mr. Westcott to the very next meeting, and we'll find out from him where we go. So that's with that, I'll just entertain a motion.
Request, Mr. Chairman.
Also, if we could just stick.
I'll take I'll make the motion for continued time.
Yeah, motion. Second, all in favor of time, signify by saying aye. Aye, the ayes have it.
Aye.
I'll give you like one more minute or so.
Yes, sir. Yes,
just
sir.
please stick to the legislation.
Mr. Chairman, I am sticking to the legislation. If folks could please give a list, send it to me, email it to me, of the pros and cons. Ms. Holland, if you don't have time, I understand you don't. But so that we can get past the politics and just deal with the policy. Just send me the pros and the cons, and I'll be able to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Neal, for that. And if there's anything else to come before the committee, I'm not seeing anyone. So we'll, this committee is adjourned. Housing committee is adjourned. Thank you. Sarah Biviano, any last comments?
That is our final committee meeting of the day. Council will meet at 7 p.m. tonight.
Thank you. Thanks.